Hello everyone, it's Rabbi Chaitovsky here at BMH-BJ with another video dvar, and I hope everyone had a wonderful Pesach, and now our Torah portions resume with their normal run, and we are reading the Torah portion of Shemini, which means the eighth, and it refers to the eighth day of the consecration of the Mishkan. And the Mishkan has been set up for the past 5 weeks in our Torah readings, even longer, and all of the instructions to the Kohanim and the Leviim are now going to come to the fore, and they're going to be put into play as Aaron and his children are going to take their places and serve and demonstrate what it is that they're going to be doing in the Mishkan. And after setting up a sacrifice or two where fire miraculously comes and consumes the sacrifice, it says, Vayikchu b'nei Aharon Nadav v'Avihu, that the two children of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, took machtato, they took their little shovel, the spade with which they were going to use to serve this particular sacrifice. Vayitnu behen eish, and they put into it a fire. Vayasimu aleha katoret, and they sprinkled into it the incense. Vayakrivu lifnei Hashem, and they sacrificed before God. It says, Eish zara, a strange sacrifice, asher lo tziva otam, that God, or anyone else for that matter, had never commanded them. And unfortunately, the next thing that happens is Vateitse eish v'lifnei Hashem, that the fire that ostensibly would have consumed the sacrifice, vatochal otam, instead incinerated them. Vayamutu lifnei Hashem, and they died right at that moment as they were serving God, as they were initiating the Mishkan. They brought this strange fire, and the fire incinerated them. Very troubling episode in our Torah portion, and it's difficult to understand what it is that Nadav and Avihu, the two children of Aaron, could have possibly done that would have made the fire consume them and kill them at that magnificent moment. So it's very interesting. The rabbis, because the Torah is rather spare in its details, the rabbis try to fill in what it is that Nadav and Avihu may have done that was so wrong. And there are all sorts of different answers that are suggested. I would like to stick to the one that's right here in the Torah portion. And that is that they brought a strange fire, asher lo tziva otam, that had not been commanded to them. And I want to focus on that because later on in the book of Deuteronomy, when Moses reviews all these incidents about the giving of the Torah and the episode of the golden calf, Moses says that he interceded and tried to pray on behalf of the people in the aftermath of the golden calf. And he interjects there something that we did not see as the episode happened, which is he says that God was angry with Aaron and that Moses needed to pray for Aaron as well because of Aaron's role in somehow allowing the golden calf to happen. Rashi happens to comment that Moses' prayers were only partially successful. And the example he gives of that is that 2 of Aaron's sons were spared, but 2 died. And the 2 that died, Rashi says, were Nadav and Avihu. There seems to be a connection between Aaron's complicity in the golden calf and their death here with this strange fire. And in order to understand this, we have to look at what Moses did when he comes off the mountain and sees the Jewish people dancing around the golden calf. It says he smashes the luchot, he smashes the 10 Commandments into pieces. And we have to understand, why did Moses do this? And most of the people who explain what Moses did say that Moses was destroying the evidence of the agreement the Jewish people had made with God just weeks before about not worshiping idols and only worshiping God. And when Moses saw that the Jewish people were actually worshiping what he considered to be an idol, He smashed the luchot because it was the evidence of the agreement. It was their contract. And rather than hold them accountable for violating the contract, he destroyed the evidence of the contract. And Rashi says, Yashakoach sheshibarta. Great job. You did the right thing by breaking the luchot. But in Rabbi Yehuda Halevi's Kuzari, he offers a very different explanation as to why Moses destroyed the luchot. He says that Moses reasoned as follows. If the Jewish people were making such a big deal and worshiping a man-made object, such as a golden calf, imagine what they're going to do with this God-fashioned and God-created luchot, that they run the risk of taking them and elevating them to such a degree and turning it into an idol of its own. And Moses said that's not what the luchot, that's not what the Ten Commandments are all about. The physical stones, the luchot, the tablets, were not there to be idolized and turned into an idol. And Moses smashes them because he fears that if the Jewish people did it to the golden calf, they would certainly do it to this, and that would have been a colossal mistake. So what does this have to do with Aaron's children? It goes back to the verse that describes what Aaron's children did. It says they brought a strange fire that had not been commanded them. Perhaps Aaron's children, in their zeal to do, and their well-intentioned zeal to do what they felt needed to be done, they overstepped the line a little bit, and they interjected some of their own ideas and some of their own motivations into this highly regulated service known as the avodah. And in doing so, they tampered with what God had ordained, and they interjected their own ideas and, in a sense, idolized or turned what was happening into idolatry. And that was a dangerous thing for Aaron's children to do. And they played with fire, literally. And rather than be illuminated by the fire, they were incinerated by it. And maybe the message of the Torah portion, as hard as it is to understand, and as tragic as it was for Nadav and Avihu, and of course for their parents, Aaron the high priest, it was simply a matter of them perverting what God had done, what God had ordained, and transforming it into something that had never been imagined. And that would have turned it into some other kind of idolatry, another kind of service. And the Jewish people were being weaned away from idolatry, as Maimonides says. One of the purposes of these sacrifices was to wean the people away from idolatry and to transform what had been a part of idolatrous practice into something magnificent and into something utterly holy and utterly God-ordained. And Aaron's children may not have gotten the full gist of that message. And they were great people, make no mistake about it. They were wonderful tzaddikim, righteous people. But they overstepped, and they ran the risk of taking the ceremony and transforming it into an idolatrous rite. And that would not have been the right thing to do. They played with fire and were burned. Very troubling episode, but one that's important for us to understand, because in our day and age, very often people play with the fire of religion, and they try to transform it or pervert it into something that can only come back to hurt them and can only come back to harm them. Religion should illuminate, but sometimes the fires of religion incinerate, and we must be wary of that. Shabbat Shalom.